Hi tappers! Did you try out the tearless trauma technique from last week? If you did, let me know below. I want to know how it went. Today, we are focusing on a gentle technique called sneaking up on the problem. I love this technique because of how it flows. It is great for someone who is very chatty about their issue and seems to feel very absolute that nothing can be done about it. This is good for when the belief is stubborn, more so than the emotion is too big. With this type of issue, the person has likely experienced a lot of evidence that they have no hope. No one has ever. Everyone in my family. Nothing else has worked, so, etc. And I'm not making light of this. I spent 17 years in a horrible chronic disease myself that seemed completely incurable. There was no gradual of progression of health for me. It was 17 years of awfulness that nothing seemed to make a dent in, and 2 weeks of intense therapies that worked and I was better. I had given up all hope, and I was quite bitter and angry anytime a doctor said they wanted to do another test to see. Nothing ever turned out until it did, and then I was healthy in 2 weeks. And it was a very painful time when I gave in to try something new, because that meant that I was on some level agreeing to believe it might help. And that made me feel like a complete fool at that time in my life. So while this technique can be looked at in a funny, filibuster your ailment kind of way, what it can do in a very serious way is stop that super highway of neural pathways which are building towards that unhelpful belief, and stop it from having a stronger hold on your brain. So how does this work? Sneaking up allows you to accept other possibilities. Do you remember the video I did with a single mom with the young boys? She didn't feel like anyone could possibly ever want her before our session. And it did not matter what anyone said. She was filtering every fact through the trauma of her husband cheating and leaving, which caused her to conclude in that moment of trauma and overwhelm that she was wholly unlovable. So that was the pass-fail test, and nothing could pass. So we tapped on her belief with sneaking up on the problem. I simply agreed with her on whatever she said, and we added the EFT phrasing to it, even though, this is how I feel right now, I deeply and completely accept myself. And let me make an important side note here. She wasn't having a deep spiritual connection with herself through saying the EFT phrasing. She said the words because I said the words. And I'm not sure how much thought or effort behind that she really put into it beyond that. But it still made a big difference. When her objections died down through doing this, I began a technique of bouncing back and forth. Maybe there's someone. No, there can't be. Not anyone. Well, surely there's one man. Nope, it's just not true. This really wiggled some things loose. I could see how she was more agreeing with the statements of possibility here. Then we had some fun. Exaggeration can be a great tool in this process. Not until you or your client are ready to feel lighthearted about the subject though. So really keep that in mind and use your insights, your intuition, and your reading of their body language to determine timing for making light of it. I began to lead her to say things like, even with the millions of men in the world, not a single one would look at me. Even with my gorgeous hair and my awesome butt, they just wouldn't be interested. Now, you will see a switch occur in their comfort level with the negative statements, and that's when you know that you can be complete with this technique. At first, they will nod strongly in agreement with the negativity. Of course that's true. Then they will start to question it, maybe have a shift of perspective or insight into themselves, and then you can really laugh about it, really shine light about how unlikely that once really strong belief really probably is. And finally, you will see them become uncomfortable with the negativity. As you continue to say things like, "But it will never be true," they will make a face, they'll hesitate to say it, they will disconnect emotionally from it, etc. And they will likely begin nodding in agreement with the positive statements. Switch complete. I've also found it to be very helpful here to give permission to feel two opposing things at once to help loosen the strongly held negative beliefs, such as, I can be hurt by my ex and want to have a good partner in my life, or I can grieve the loss of my pet and desire to connect to a new animal. I can completely give up on this today and still find a solution tomorrow. If the SUD score isn't a 0 or a 1 at this point, you'll probably want to switch to another technique that's appropriate for what it is that's remaining to knock it loose the rest of the way. But my experience with this particular technique, it's really strong at releasing all of the belief of an issue, and anything that's left is typically an emotional component that's asking for a different tapping technique. Next video, we dive into a very familiar realm that most people are aching to release: pain. See what I did there? I'll see you soon.